All right, President Biden begins the day in Nevada, where he is looking to court Black and Hispanic voters. In a pre-taped interview with BET, he spoke about some policies supported by the GOP and how he plans to address them.
Republicans in the Supreme Court, as you note, have banned or are trying to ban affirmative action, the teaching of Black history, dismantling of DE&I projects, and they're promising to roll back even more with something you and I talked about before we started here, and that's Project 2025. How do you stand in the breach?
I stand in the breach by making it clear we're not going to let that happen. For example, if you look at what happened with George Floyd, we didn't get the legislation, so I took executive action. Made sure these guys got to wear cameras, and everybody has everything's on. It's changed. It's changed the way things happen. Not what we should have, as far as it should change, but it's changed things.
Okay, CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang is joining me now from Las Vegas. Weijia, good to see you. So we're learning more about the DNC presidential nomination plan. What have you learned?
That's right, Vlad. So at the RNC this week in Milwaukee, we saw all those delegates formally nominate former President Donald Trump and Senator J.D. Vance to be their Republican ticket. Typically, that's what would happen for the Democrats as well, and their convention begins in Chicago on August 19th. But this year, they actually moved up the date to sometime before August 7th. Why is that? Because they wanted to make sure they were going to get on the critical state of Ohio, and Ohio's law required them to have a nominee by August 7th. And so that's why the DNC also moved their date up. And the plan is to have this virtual roll call to officially nominate Joe Biden sometime before August 7th. Well, they could have done that anytime between July 21st and August 27th, August 7th. Why does this matter, Vlad? It matters because, of course, the background conversation that for now is private, because they're trying to allow the president to have his space to respond to the shooting. There's still calls for him within his own party to step down as the nominee, right? So if they were to have this roll call in about 4 days, which they could, that would close the door. It would shut down all those conversations. They would say, Joe Biden is officially our candidate. And so this just buys more time for them to have conversations, for them to, if they attempt to try to convince Biden to step down. But I do think it's really interesting, given they have the option of moving it up, to stop those conversations.
Yeah, so let me ask you about those conversations before we talk about the proposed changes to the court, Weijia. The New York Times and others are reporting that just in the hours prior to that assassination attempt on former President Trump, the President Biden held a conversation or had a conference call or some type of call with members of his party, and some of them were not reassured by what the president was saying. In other words, they felt that he was displaying the behavior that 50 million Americans saw during that debate a couple of weeks ago, and specifically a conversation he had with with Congressman Jason Crow. What have you guys learned about that, and what is the Biden camp saying about that?
We are ferociously trying to track that down, Vlad, because I know the report that you referenced, I think people were actually able to access a recording of that Zoom call and hear it for themselves. What we do know is that it's not surprising because, this is a man who does get very testy at times. We are told through sources that he can have a temper and that he does, go off when he feels very passionately about something. So it's not surprising that the president would be irritated whenever the conversation is about whether he should step down and not run for re-election. Even in public, he has been very vocal about the fact that he is not going anywhere. I think, what's important here, Vlad, is that there are still many Democrats who, even if they're not attaching their name to it, even if they're not putting this, Zoom call out to the public, are telling people, telling reporters that, and others, that what they are seeing behind the scenes is not exactly what people see on screen of Biden all the time. And the difference is whether he's off the cuff, whether he's unscripted or reading from a teleprompter. And so that's why there are these concerns about whether he is fit to take on Trump, who, by the way, has more support than ever from his party because of that shooting. And so while the Republicans are extremely unified, there is this, chaos happening among Democrats. And that's why, for now, they don't want to publicly have those conversations and appear to be so weak as the Republican National Convention is happening. But there is no question, Vlad, that I think the conversation in public will resume after the RNC, right? And we're already seeing glimpses of that. And so the next few weeks are going to be so critical for how this party moves forward.
Yeah, indeed, and that's why the president is proposing some changes to the Supreme Court, including term limits. Weijia Jiang for us in Las Vegas, tracking the president's movements. We appreciate it as always, Weijia. Thank you.